This
starting so
conference
that
will
it
now
will.
be recorded.
Okay, sure. Not a problem. I'll do that right now. So is everyone comfortable if I, just go ahead and do a revision on the pipeline today?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So let's do that. In that case, let's, kind of go back to our project and, let's start doing this out. So I have a project again. So is everyone comfortable with the branching policies and etc. All that stuff is like, okay, right?
Yeah, branching policies is okay. Yeah,
Yes.
Yes, cloning everything. Okay.
Everything is okay. So we are here. We have a develop branch, and inside this develop branch, you have couple of things out here. And something that I am really interested into is, let's say, the projects out here, meaning something which has the code for me. This is now a .NET core code. Okay. How am I able to identify that? It's because I have a file called appsettings.json file out here, which kinds of gives me, or basically all the developers save their configuration in this particular JSON file. So this is a code which relates to, let's say, something known as a .NET Core project. So again, .NET Core is a platform independent project, or is a platform independent code. You can run a .NET Core both on Linux and also Windows. You can do that on both of the operating systems out there. And .NET Full Framework, on the other hand, this is platform specific, meaning this is only Windows. And how can you identify it? The configuration is stored in the form of web.config, web.debug config, and web.release config. Whenever you see these files, right, this is a .NET full framework project. Now, what do we want is that we want a build pipeline right now, meaning I have a developer who's kind of committed the code. So let's open the drawing board out here. I have a developer who's trying to commit the code. And as and when the developer kind of commits the code, right, I would need a pipeline to trigger. I would need something known as a continuous integration pipeline to trigger. So let's open up our Azure DevOps. Let's see, where's this one? Yeah, let's take Azure DevOps and let's say select. So this is where I am. So I have a developer who's coming from a feature branch and kind of going into the feature branch and kind of making changes and merging it onto the develop branch. So I want to now create something known as a pipeline for him. So what I'll be doing right now is I'll say, okay, fine. I have a couple of pipelines already, so I'm not worried about that. Let's go ahead and create a pipeline. And this time I will create a pipeline for what? And ASP.NET Full Framework project. Okay, so I'll go into the files and I have the ASP.NET Full Framework project out here. This is the project that I need. So what I'm going to do is I'll say a new pipeline out here. And as in when I click on a new pipeline, it's asking me whether I want to create what, a YAML or a classic editor, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll say classic editor. And now it says, okay, fine. Where is your code? Like in which repository your code is. It says, I understand that you want to create a pipeline for this particular project called Terraform, which is your team project. And you have a repository for them. And then you have something like a branch for them, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll say, okay, fine. Let me go ahead, take the develop branch of this project and I'll say continue. Now it's asking me what kind of a code, or what kind of a code do you have and what kind of a pipeline do you want me to create for you. Now I know that I am now creating a pipeline for what? ASP.NET Full Framework, right? So I'll say apply. I'll just do a simple application of ASP.NET and this is going to give me an entire template to create a pipeline now. Now let's understand firstly what this template is and what it's trying to do and etc. So I'll just name this as net full framework and say CI. It's a continuous integration pipeline that I want to achieve. And what I'm doing out here is that I'm saying, okay, fine, this is the pipeline that I need. And under the agent job is where I'm mentioning all the tasks. The first task I'm mentioning is please go ahead and do something known as a NuGet installer. Meaning this is a what guys? This is an ASP.NET full framework, right? And full framework, for it to restore the dependencies, for it to let's say restore the dependencies, it needs a tool called NuGet.exe. .exe. Meaning what this needs to do right now is that on the agent machine which is building my code, it needs to make this tool available. So it will simply go to something known as a nuget.org website out here, and from the downloads it's just going to download something known as a nuget.exe version, whichever the version that you specify. It'll go ahead and download it. For example, if I download this particular version to my laptop, okay, if I go into this particular folder, open up the cmd and say nuget.exe, sorry, yeah, nuget.exe, it knows that there is a NuGet file out here, which will help me. Now see, it's telling you know what, these are all the options that you can do. And one of the option is what? NuGet restore. Meaning restore the dependencies or restore the packages that are actually mentioned in this particular file or actually mentioned in this particular pipeline. Meaning even if I come here in my local machine, now I have a NuGet, I have ASP.NET, everything that is installed now. If I come here and try to restore the dependencies, let me try to do that. So let's see, I now have a .NET Core here. Let's see if I have a .NET full framework. I should have a .NET full framework project. Let's see. Let's see C drive, and let's say users. Let's say welcome. Let's say sources. Let's say repos. Let's see for well, this one. This particular project is what, a full framework application, right? So what I'll do is I'll say okay, fine. This is the path of the solution file out here. Like this is the entire path of the solution file. So I'll say okay, fine. I'll just copy the entire path, / the name of this particular file out here. Okay, so I'm just taking this name of the file, putting it here .sln. And if I now say nuget.exe restore, and then give this entire path out here, it says okay, fine, the given path format is not supported. Let's see. Let's take this out and let's see if this works. So what it's doing right now, if you see, is that it's trying to restore the dependencies. It says, you know what, all the packages are now being listed, all the packages have been restored, right? Meaning what I'm doing out here is doing what? A restoration using something known as nuget.exe. Guys, are you all comfortable with this? Are you all okay with this explanation? Like are you all able to follow what I'm trying to say? Is this okay?
This NuGet.exe, this is the
Mhm.
exe file for .NET Core, right? .NET, right? ASP.NET.
Yes, ASP.NET full framework, yes.
So do we need to have this to restore it?
Exactly.
Do we
We
need to
need to
install
have this to
this?
restore it. Exactly. We need to install this, meaning I have downloaded this Sanjay, right? I have downloaded this into this particular download folder, and I'm running a nuget.exe from this download folder. Only because I have this, I'm able to do a NuGet restore, right? Let's say if I delete
Okay,
this out.
okay. So you are just explaining the dependency of NuGet.exe file, like
NuGet,
so that
exactly.
in. Okay, okay, got it.
So if I do a NuGet.exe now, it's now saying NuGet.exe is not an recognized command, meaning for a .NET full framework project, in order for you to restore the dependencies, you need a tool called NuGet.exe, because .NET framework kind of depends upon this tool. for doing that restoration process, right? So good with this, guys? Did you all understand this command, what I'm trying to do out here?
Yes.
Okay, Akila, Chandra, everyone, are you all on the same page like I am? Is everyone on the same page?
Yeah, yes.
So this
Yes.
is
Yes.
an established norm. Yeah. So this is an established norm that I need a NuGet.exe to be in place on any of the machine that I'm building my code so that I can restore my dependencies. That is the reason you're doing a NuGet installer on your build pipeline, the very starting of the thing. Is telling you that, you know what, please go ahead and download a NuGet.exe of the version 4.4.1 or anything that is close to it. Anything that is close to, let's say, 4 dot something something something. So you have a 4.1.0, it'll go ahead and download anything that is 4.4 dot something like this. It'll say, okay, fine, I got a version that you asked for. I will download the NuGet.exe file. Second thing that I'm going to do is using that NuGet.exe.restore command. Right now, you see, you have NuGet.exe push and all that stuff. Using that particular NuGet.exe, I will execute something known as restore command on the solution file that you have given me. Even here we did the same thing, right? We did the same thing out here. We gave a solution file path and we said, okay, packages that are mentioned in that particular solution. After doing the restoration is where we are invoking something known as a Visual Studio build process, where we are telling that, okay, fine, I have restored all the packages. I am good to go ahead and give it a build. Now please go ahead and build my application. Sorry about that. Yes, so I am doing a NuGet installation firstly. Then using that installed NuGet, I am restoring my solution. Then I am building my solution using something known as Visual Studio Build.
Kiran, you are
Then,
not audible. Some break is come. Just now we are able to hear.
are you able to hear now, Chandra?
Yes, yes, yes. Now it's good.
Okay, like good with everyone, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just telling this one that you are doing a NuGet installation, then doing a NuGet restoration. So why are you installing this? If you don't install it, this is the error that you'll get. Telling that I did not find that particular tool that you're trying to install it out. I don't understand what you're trying to perform. I don't understand what is a NuGet restoration command that you're giving. This is something that the tool is telling me, right? After this, after the restoration is where I'm going and saying, okay, fine, give me a build process. So I basically go ahead and build my code out here. This is the main step to build your code. Then finally I say, okay, fine. If there are any test cases that are there in my code, please test it out. If there are nothing, I can just remove this out. And I don't even want this one. This task is, like it's not that worthy to even go ahead and explain that. And then I'll say publish the artifact to something known as artifact.staging directory or build.artifact staging directory. This is what your CI pipeline will do. Now going a step ahead, this is a build pipeline now. This is a very simple build pipeline. If I want to make it as a continuous integration pipeline, meaning whenever a developer pushes a code into it, I need this pipeline to trigger. I'll come here and I'll say enable continuous integration and I'll select the branch out here called a develop branch and then save and queue. And once this is starting a run, right, it will do all these procedures out here. First thing it will do is go to the cloud and try to get an agent so that the build process can be started. Second thing it's going to do after getting the agent is it will download, sorry, this is the code. So then it'll do a checkout step out here, meaning if I'm able to do this restoration, I have the code on my local machine, right? If the agent wants to do it, the agent also should have this code on its local machine. That's the reason it's going ahead and downloading the entire code, then downloading the NuGet.exe, then restoring the dependencies, then building the solution, then publishing the artifact. This is what our build pipeline for a full framework is doing. Now then, how is it different for a core application? Now for a core application, you don't need the NuGet restoration step, and then it kind of failed, some version mismatch and stuff like that. Yeah, I know why exactly this failed and all. So if you now see here, I am doing a NuGet restoration on what? The SLN file, right? Meaning I am telling it whatever solutions that you have in this particular project or whatever solutions that you have in this particular repository, please go ahead and try doing a restore on them. What it did right now, it found two solutions out here. One, a solution file for full framework. Two, a solution file for core. It was also trying to restore the dependencies of core, and it now says, you know what, the NuGet restoration cannot be supported for a .NET Core project. That's what it's trying to tell. That you know what, you're targeting a wrong project out here. You should have targeted just a full framework, not the core, because a core project will not support it, and this is what the error kind of comes for you. The same thing happens when I do a NuGet restore using my local machine to a core project. If I basically target a core project, you will see the same error even in your local machine, because for a core project, NuGet restoration is not supported. So what should have I ideally done is, instead of targeting or instead of giving a wild card out here telling that please target every solution file that you see, I should have said, I should have been more specific by telling that, you know what, target something like this particular solution file. This is a solution file that you would like to target, and I can say now save in queue and save and run out here, and this will now start doing that NuGet restoration and all in the proper way. So any questions with this, guys? Any questions with this process? I mean, as per my understanding, this is something that you had a bit of confusions with, right?
Yeah.
Is this
Now
okay
the
now?
process understood about the pipelines,
Mm-hmm.
the task how to select, and also you suggested we can go to the portal, Azure portal, and we can check DevOps status, how the
Right, right.
uh, thing. But which version of the agent that how to find out? For example, in case of Terraform or in case of
Mm-hmm.
the NuGet, how
Okay.
can we identify specific version of the agent? If we give the
So,
wrong one, it may be
mhm.
issue, right?
So are you talking about the version of the agent, or are you talking about the version of the NuGet exe that you need to install on the agent?
No,
Two things out here. Mhm.
in the pipeline, we need to select that specific one, right?
This one you're talking about, is it?
Yes.
So
How to
this is
identify
the
and select while creating the task in the pipeline.
okay. So normally any version of NuGet will kind of work. What I do when I kind of select is I select the latest one. Whichever is latest, I kind of select it, because also the latest ones, right? They support something known as a backward compatibility. So in this particular page, if I come down to the downloads out here, I see this is the latest one out here. But right now what we are doing is we are using a 4.4.1, which still will work, which will still work without any issues. So the version of exe what you download, it will just give you a capability to restore your solution. So for example, let's say your solution is breaking or your restoration is breaking out here, and it will clearly give you an error telling that, you know what, this version is not supported with the code that you're using. I cannot restore it. That is when you will engage the development team and ask them or consult with them as to which NuGet dependencies they have in their code. Now they will tell you that, you know what, we are using this specific version. I want you to fix on that particular specific version as such. Normally, like in my experience, any version of NuGet should work until and unless Microsoft, or until and unless, let's say, NuGet decides to deprecate it. For example, right now, if you look at .NET Core SDK, and if I kind of do download .NET Core SDK out here, 5.1 is the recommended version right now. 3.1, even though it has a long-term support, the pipelines aren't supporting a 3.1 SDK version out here. So whichever agent that you kind of do, you will have to have a .NET Core SDK of 5 version up there. Otherwise, your restoration task will clearly throw an error telling that, you know what, this version is deprecated. Can you please upgrade a new version and such and stuff like that. So it depends upon what kind of a code that you're kind of building on, and what is the, let's say, the ask from the development team. Based on these parameters, I will decide which version of, let's say, the exe to install. Now, when you come down to, let's say, Terraform, you're talking about Terraform out here. The first step that I put in Terraform is, yes, we have went ahead and installed the version of Terraform out here. Now, how did I decide it? Again, I just did something on my local machine out here. Now, if I go into my PowerShell onto my local machine out here, now Terraform and all, this is something that we control. We as DevOps engineers kind of control it. We know which version of Terraform that we are, building our files in. Let's say I do a Terraform version here. I put a command called Terraform and space hyphen version and do an enter. It says, you know what, you are on Terraform 1. Something something 05. I developed all my templates in Terraform 1.5, 1.0.5, but the latest version now that is running is 1.0.8. I know for a fact that even the latest version will support a backward compatibility of 1.0.5. So I went ahead and installed this Terraform version of 1.0.8. So this is how I am deciding, Cynthia. This is how I am taking a call on which version that needs to be installed. If this was 1.0.5, it will still work. But I'd like to basically go ahead and give the team, a latest, version every time that, this pipeline runs. But even if, let's say, if you are using an outdated file, it'll still work. So no hard and fast rule on decision making here. It's just about what is the version that is currently there in the market versus what are we using out here. This is how we get to decide, Sanjay. So does it answer your question? No?
Yes, I got it. So you showed the pipelines how to create for
Mhm.
ASP.NET or the Terraform or copy files. What
Mhm.
are the other cases will come? I mean, how can we practice? Is there any link?
So again, you'll have to do that from the Azure starter pipelines. Like you have the Azure starter, right, in portal, or the DevOps
Yes.
starter in the portal, right? So the other cases that you might, come into or you might encounter, meaning 90% of the times when you are using a tool like Azure DevOps and you're using a platform like Azure, developers will use code like .NET Core. Like .NET framework is not being used that much these days. A lot of people have already ported to .NET Core out here. You'll be mostly working with .NET or Node.js for, let's say, front ends and etc., or Java. So if you are coming, kind of coming with a developer and they're asking you to, go ahead with something known as Java code, okay? Now Java doesn't use the same Java doesn't use NuGets and all that stuff as a package manager. These are all called package managements, right? So Java uses something known as Maven or Gradle, depending upon what kind of Java version they're, kind of doing it. According to which, what you can do or what I would suggest you to do is go to the Azure starter, sorry, or go to the DevOps starter out here, build yourself a pipeline. Let's say create. And now what you want to do out here is that instead of selecting .NET, can you select Java and then say next? Then it's asking you what kind of a framework do you want. There's something known as JSF and Spring and etc. The developers would be using one of these frameworks to develop. And then you can say next and the service. Let's say Azure App Service. Next, say next. You will get a ready pipeline available. By default you'll get a ready pipeline available, which you can take an understanding of how to do it. But mostly, I mean, as per what I have seen, if they are using Java, right, they wouldn't be using a tool like Azure DevOps. Java is mostly, a favorite tool for open source platforms. .NET is more licensed. Java is more, let's say, like an open source. But even now, Java is, going into license because Oracle is, kind of purchased it out. So you need an Oracle account and etc. in order to even download Java right now. But this is how, you can go ahead and, let's say, configure yourself a pipeline and, kind of do this out. Okay.
Yeah, got it. And we are getting
Mm-hmm.
help from Microsoft for Azure portal. So in case
Mm-hmm.
in DevOps also, if you face some issue while running project, you face some
Mm-hmm.
error, right? In
Mm-hmm.
case some critical errors, if we are unable to, can we get
Mm-hmm.
help from Microsoft also in real time?
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. I mean, we do that a lot in real time. We raise a support request with Microsoft. Now, if you see yours, this is your Azure subscription, right? You have something known as new support request. This is something that, if something goes wrong in the portal. So, are you asking Sanjay if there is something similar to Azure DevOps?
Yes.
So, okay. So let me, try to, create a support request out here.
Okay, so if there is a problem in the portal, that is okay. They will support definitely. But
Mm-hmm.
what about the suppose I'm doing some pipeline, so I'm failing to do that. So in
Mm-hmm.
that case,
Mm-hmm.
will they help?
Yes, they will definitely help. That's the exact thing that I'm coming to right now. In the issue, you will say, let's say, technical, and in the services, there's ADO, Azure DevOps. Let's see, Azure DevOps. You'll have a service actually called Azure DevOps. Maybe it's a free trial account. I'm not able to get this out, but you will have an Azure DevOps service out here. So let me try to log in to a paid account. Let me see if I'm able to get that. So let's say subscriptions. Let's say this one, and I mean for enterprise account, I'm pretty sure like we did this a couple of times out there. So you can raise a support request from the Azure portal and say some test technically. Say all services, Azure DevOps services. Do you now see artifacts, boards, integration, extensibility, pipelines? Let's say your pipeline is failing. Problem subtype, CI CD or schedule triggers, solutions, and then you can raise a support ticket with Microsoft. So it says, fix the problem with expert solution, all that stuff. Now it says right now I have not, purchased any, support out here. It says, what, it's like, $29 for a month and all that stuff. So it says, something like this. So you can select the support plan. If you have a support plan, it will directly tell you, okay, fine, you can create a support request for Microsoft. So Azure portal, yes, you have a support ticket here. You can use the same thing for Azure DevOps as such. You can use the same thing for Azure DevOps by selecting the category of the service as Azure DevOps services. So does that answer your question, Chandra and Sanjay?
Yes. And
Yes, yes,
this
that is.
Azure DevOps portal, uh,
Mhm.
we selected freeware, right? Is there any time limit for that?
No, there is no time limit for that. But what happens is that the license that we are on right now is a basic license. Let's see, where is the licensing type? Let's see. Okay. So there is no time limit as such. It's just that I have a free license out here, and I have something like a limit out here that what, in the artifacts I can only store kind of 2 GB. I can have less than 1 GB space that is utilized and all that stuff. And it's giving me somewhere like around 100, 1800 minutes of, let's say, the Azure, I mean the hosted agent capability and etc. But when you go for a paid account, meaning when you go for a different license type like basic plus test plan or Visual Studio subscriber and etc., like if you look at the documentation, it's going to tell you what is the billing out and how many users that you can add and all that stuff. So there is no limit for, let's say, what is your basic. For example, it says, you know what, it's first free for the first 5 users, meaning, and paid for the 6th user. Meaning in this particular basic plan that we're using right now, you can only add 5 users at max. You can maximum go ahead and add 5 users freely, and after that, the 6th user you need to pay something. So this is how the functionality is. So there is no expiration for this. Like the portal, there is no expiration for, let's say, Azure DevOps. So it all depends upon the user and the usage. And why is there no expiration for Azure DevOps is that Azure knows that if you're using Azure DevOps, you'll basically use a cloud service to deploy all your changes, right? You'll use a cloud service to deploy all your changes like Azure. Most likely you'll use Azure because you're using a service like Azure DevOps. So they know the market gimmick that, you know what, if you're using Azure DevOps, you'll basically at the end of the day come to a portal called portal.azure.com and deploy services, and I can charge you here. And I can actually charge you here because every service that we are, kind of creating here has a charge associated with it, right? So that's the reason Azure DevOps doesn't have any expiration as such. Does that answer your question, Sanjay?
Yes, thank you.
And also we have ASP.NET full framework, right? In that we have NuGets, but in the ASP.NET Core web app we don't have NuGets. So how
Exactly.
it will differentiate, and it's just getting confusion.
In the pipeline, Akila, you're asking about?
Yeah, in the pipeline.
Okay.
And also
And
the
just a
Sonar we
correction.
have different infrastructure.
Yes, Sonar we have a different infrastructure. Again, Sonar is a different concept altogether.
Yeah.
But let's talk about and also just a quick correction. It's not ASP, net framework. It is ASP. Okay, because ASP that's how you'll need to kind of talk about it. So it's ASP full framework and ASP core. Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is that then how this is like different, how the pipeline is different. You do not have a NuGet there. You don't have a NuGet there because ASP full framework doesn't need a NuGet. Oh, sorry, ASP core doesn't need a NuGet. Why it doesn't need a NuGet is because ASP core is a bit more advanced than full framework. Full framework needs an external tool like NuGet exe in order to do the restoration process and etc. If you don't do it, it'll fail. On the other hand, the core application that we are now talking about, the NuGet.exe is an inbuilt service within it. The restoration procedure is an inbuilt service within it. You do not need an external tool like a NuGet.exe in order to go ahead and restore your dependencies out here. It's an inbuilt service in .NET Core. So that's the reason when you go ahead and select a pipeline for .NET Core, let's say, let me see if I have .NET Core, full framework, I say ASP.NET Core application, yes, this one. And if I edit this pipeline out here, if you look at this out here, it is doing a .NET restore, meaning I have something known as .NET SDK installed on my system. Meaning if I go into my system out here, in my computer out here, and go into the local drive of my computer out here, go into the program files of it, and I go into .NET, I have something known as SDK, Software Development Kit. This is something that I have installed out there. But when you create an agent out here, when you select an agent out here, which is Windows some specifications out here, right? The .NET frameworks are going to be installed by default. Meaning all that is, let's say, native to Microsoft is going to get installed. But when you did the same thing for a self-hosted agent, you went ahead and installed .NET Core framework out there or Core SDK out there. Meaning if I have this in my local system, if I have this SDK in my local system, I can run a command against my code. For example, let me go to my code out here. Let's say something like users, welcome, and again sources, repositories, and let's say .NET Core. Like one of the .NET Core test project is here with me. So I'll just take this again. .sln, and what I'm going to do now is not do a NuGet restoration, but I'll do a new .NET space restore, and then give the entire path. This particular project path is something that I'm entirely giving out here. This will now do a .NET restoration and not a NuGet restoration. If I do a NuGet restoration against a .NET Core project, it is going to fail because NuGet is a service which is internal to .NET Core. So you're doing what? You have a .NET command out here. You said, you know what, go ahead and do a .NET space restore. The same thing you're running on the pipeline. The same thing you're running on the pipeline out here, doing a .NET restoration here. So when a developer wants to test their code on the local machine, they are just going to do the same thing called .NET Restore or NuGet Restore, depending upon the framework that you're using, whether it's a full framework or it's a core. This is what is the biggest difference between .NET Core and full framework. Akila, does this answer your question? Does it clear your doubt?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so this is what I'm just doing on the cloud. The only reason this is tricky is because we are not from a development background. So if we were from a development background, right, we would have understand what .NET Restore really is. So I wouldn't, kind of blame you all. It's just, let's say, the development understanding. So that's the reason I'm just trying to give you the very basic understanding of how a developer will, kind of work for this, or how a developer will, approach this out. Okay, any more questions with this one, guys? So does it now, is this now clear between, let's say, the pipelines, Akila? Is that okay, guys? Any questions, guys? Anything that I can take?
Hi, Karan, can you explain the release pipeline as well?
Sure. So, okay. So what I'm doing in the release pipeline is very simple. I'm saying, okay, fine. I have a code. I have a build pipeline that got triggered. I have the artifact that is available right now. So I have a build pipeline that is ready. I have the artifact now with me that is like, produced out. All I want to do is take this artifact and deploy it on each and every stage. For that, what I did is I came down to the release pipeline. I said, okay, fine, add a new release pipeline, said new release pipeline. And now I said, okay, fine, in the release pipeline, let me go ahead and add an artifact. And the artifact is something that I get from my build pipeline out here, which is, let's say, ASP.NET Full Framework Pipeline, which is CI, Net Framework CI. And I say add this out. And now I add a stage here, telling that it's an empty job and this stage name is a development stage. And inside this, I'll start adding tasks. Like what I want to do, I want to just deploy it onto something known as an Azure Web App. So I'll say Azure Web App deploy. This one, say add, and I'll give the details of my web application and all that stuff, like service connection and everything. So I'll say DevOps deployment. I'll say web app that is running on a Windows machine. As of now, I do not have anything on my portal, I guess. Yeah, I don't have anything on my portal. So I'll just give a dummy name out here, say dummy name, and just save this out. Like this, I can have multiple phases of development. Not only one environment out here, but environments like testing, environments like staging, environments like production. Everything in line with the diagram basically that we are kind of looking at. So this is how I would just create a release pipeline. I'm not triggering one. To trigger it, can have to go ahead and create an Azure web app, which will take some time. So I'm not triggering one, but I'm just explaining how to create a release pipeline. And after creating a release pipeline, if you see this flash button out here, click this and say enable. It will enable something known as a continuous deployment trigger, meaning whenever your build pipeline triggers and you have a new artifact which is produced, it will take this and directly deploy on top of the environment. Okay, is this clear, Ramakrishna?
Yes.
Here we are using continuous deployment. Where can we use continuous delivery?
So just a second. So Continuous delivery again depends upon the code lifecycle that you're following. Meaning, even though this is a continuous deployment trigger, even though if you say this is a continuous deployment trigger, you are doing not a continuous deployment, meaning you are not just deploying it at one go. You are triggering the release in the form of iterations. For example, say leave. Let's say we have a couple of releases out here. So in the first release, we went ahead and deployed something. Second release, we improved on it. Third release, we made sure to add something to it. Fourth release, you did something else. This is nothing but a continuous delivery process. So a continuous deployment or a continuous delivery is the framework of the project, not a release pipeline. Is the framework of the entire project. So in the first iteration, you're producing some artifact, deploying it. Second iteration, producing something, deploying it. So you're not doing a complete artifact at once and then deploying it, right? You're not just using one release to just deploy every change, but rather your releases are also getting iterated. So this ideology or this framework in which we are, kind of learning things out in a continuous delivery framework, Chandra.
Okay, it's a continuous delivery is nothing but a hypothetical name, but we cannot check anywhere.
Exactly, we cannot check anywhere. So it's just a name that exists. It's just a ideology that exists. You cannot check that option anywhere.
Okay, got it.
I mean, there's a very thin line between delivery and deployment. It just depends upon what your project really, kind of operates. 99% of the, people out there use continuous delivery mechanism, but they call it as continuous deployment. So they use those terms interchangeably. But from an interview perspective, it's just a theory that you need to understand that what continuous delivery means and what continuous deployment means as such.
Okay. Well, can we say that like this? So when we do the multiple deployment, continuous deployments, it's called like a continuous delivery.
I mean, you can tell that, but I would refrain in doing that because let's say in the first release you went ahead and pushed one complete software on one particular application. Then you came down and edited your release pipeline. You're targeting some different application right now, and you're now deploying some different software. It will still show it is release 2, but you're doing a continuous deployment there, not a delivery, right? So it depends on the framework where you're operating. It depends on how you're operating on things, which kind of also boils down to the project framework that you're into. That kind of isolates or that kind of dictates whether it's a continuous deployment or a delivery process that you're following.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions, guys, in this one? And yeah, please do ask if there is any topic that you are not like comfortable with. My suggestion would be just try to follow the video firstly. If it's still not clear, I can make sure that I'll take extra sessions and I'll cover that out. Okay.
Sure.
So is this clear now? The build and release process, is this clear now?
It's clear.
Yes.
Okay.
And today's
So,
topic of Terraplan, we gave the paths, right? I'm just
mhm.
confused about the paths, like additional command arguments. We gave it the
So
plan.
were you clear about giving the path in the local machine, Akila? Like in the local from when you're doing with your local machine, you are giving a command called terraform plan hyphen out hyphen something like that, right?
Yeah,
So were you clear? I mean, were you able to do it on your local machine?
no.
Okay, so first try doing it on your local machine, try testing it on your local machine, and then take it on your pipeline. Because whatever additional parameters that you're giving on your local machine, for example, whatever I'm telling the terraform plan and then giving an additional parameter like out some path here and then
Which means
var
you are
hyphen
telling,
file.
which
Hmm?
means you are telling to execute in the VS Code.
Yes, I'm asking you to execute in
Yeah,
the VS Code firstly.
yeah, I done it.
So were you able to understand how it's working in a VS Code?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Okay. In the pipeline, the additional arguments are nothing but these things out here that you are passing on your VS Code. So everything that you're passing in your VS Code out here as an additional argument is what you're passing on the pipeline as arguments out here. So everything that you're passing here in your local machine as parameters are called arguments on the pipeline. So just try this out. If you're still a bit confused, let me know. I'll cover this out again. Okay. Okay, and please visit Azure DevOps Labs that I was suggesting. Please visit this particular website called Azure DevOps Lab, and there is a module for Terraform. Terraform Azure DevOps. There is a module for this called Automating Infrastructure. This will clear additional doubts that you have. Like this is very well documented with screenshots and etc. I'll just paste the link out here. So in case you want to kind of look at this, please also have a look at this and let me know if there are any questions there as well. Okay.
Sure.
Any more questions, guys?
Hi, Kiran.
Yeah, Ramakrishna.
Is it our choice or the developer choice to choose between ARM or Terraform?
It's our choice. Like it's the DevOps engineers who get to decide the infrastructure. So it's completely dependent upon our team, our preferences, the skill set that is there in the team, and etc.
What are the pros and cons between these two?
So the pro of ARM is that ARM is a Microsoft language, so you get a good support for ARM, and ARM supports something known as incremental deployments. Con of ARM is that it is heavy syntax. It's a JSON syntax it follows, so you'll need to understand the JSON syntaxing of ARM. If you don't, let's say, give a comma or you kind of miss somewhere, right, the template is going to fail. On the other hand, Terraform is not that way. Terraform is not heavily syntaxed. Terraform follows a very simple language called HashiCorp configuration language, HCL. And Terraform templates can be used to basically deploy not only on Azure, but also maintain infrastructure on other clouds like GCP or AWS and etc.
AWS.
Yes. So it's a multi-cloud, environment tool out here, which is open source in nature, and you can, pretty much, use that in order to deploy on multiple environments. But ARM, on the other hand, is only used for Azure. So each and everything has
So,
its own pros and cons. Yeah.
so Terraform is evolving now.
Terraform is evolving now. Yes, definitely yes. But people who are using ARM, for example, in the project where I work, we are heavily using ARM templates. We are heavily making use of ARM templates, a bit of Terraforms, because we know what is the SLA that we get with ARM. Because Azure best supports with ARM. Let's say if your Terraform kind of throws any errors, right? There is not much support that you can get from HashiCorp because it's an open source platform. But on the other hand, SLA is better when you kind of take ARM. But yes, Terraform is now evolving because it's a multi-cloud environment and syntax free. You don't have to worry about all the commas and etc. like in JSON. So both are equally powerful. It's just that what skill set you have and what you are better comfortable with, you can use that particular thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else, guys? Okay, so the new questions, then I'm good to end the session for today. I will start for I will from tomorrow we will start with the open source of the things like Jenkins and etc. We'll look at Jenkins and all, and we will see how you can use Jenkins and all that stuff. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you guys, and we'll meet tomorrow at the same time. And just in case if I'm a bit delay, I'll maximum take about 2 or 3 minutes to complete the earlier class and to jump in this class. Just in case if it's delay, apologies from my end earlier. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Yep. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.